Health versus performance, balance versus precision. I've been beating this drum for several weeks now, longer than that. But with the podcast with Les, getting fired up here recently, and then some of the presentations that I've done this year, this has kind of been a cornerstone aspect of that entirety of what we are trying to do or what we are trying to build. So there's a few common cliches here, right? The best ability is availability, and the only separation between performance and rehabilitation or restoration is the dose, the frequency, the volume. And these are great heuristics for us to understand, and I don't say that tongue in cheek, but I think the clarifying point that I've come to with this is when we are aiming to improve performance, we have to be very precise and focused on distinct measurable outcomes that we're pursuing. When our goal or our target is health or rehabilitation or restoration, then we need to have a complete focus on balancing the system and the structures. So I talk all the time about injuries and really have become, my work and world is 95% injury driven, restoration driven. But the irony of it is like I'm still a strength coach. And the vast majority of the people that I present to, that I communicate to, that I do these things for is for that strength and conditioning community. So over the past year or so, I've gotten a lot of questions that have been along the lines of, hey man, I've got 40 kids, I've got 1 hour, I've got 10 of them who've got nicks and bumps and bruises, ankle sprains, achy shoulder, whatever. I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have a lot of time. What can I do? And of course, these are challenging and complicated situations. But what I keep continuing to come back to is we need to balance the athletes that have been overworked or overloaded, and we need to not interfere with the athletes that still need to, put their alignment towards performance. So a contextual example here. If we have an athlete who has plantar fasciitis, very common thing from youth all the way through professionals. What is plantar fasciitis? Well, anytime we hear the word itis, we need to think about a disproportionate balancing of stresses and forces throughout the body. So in other words, in the case of plantar fasciitis, the plantar fascia has been overloaded and overworked, either due to the direct inputs that have been placed on or demanded by the body or on the athlete rather, or because we have some sort of compensation or compensatory mechanism occurring that is not loading other things, so the plantar fascia is chronically being overloaded. So when we have itises, tendonitis, fasciitis, arthritis, any of these things, it's a chronic, persistent breakdown of the collagen or of the tissue that is exceeding the rate at which the tissue is able to be repaired. So when we think about the plantar fascia, we think about too much of this and not enough of this. We lose dexterity in the foot. We lose the ability to open and splay the foot because the foot has become more tonic and more shortened and compressed due to the breakdown of the tissue. So what are these simple strategies relating this back to, I have 40 kids, I have an hour, I don't know, what I'm doing, right? Well, when we have plantar fasciitis, the first thing is we have to do something designated to address that site prior to the rest of the athletes coming into training. Tennis ball smashing, battle rope walking, even just getting the athlete out of their shoes and doing single leg balance work. Just get the foot to interact with the ground and interface with the ground. We have a flexed, shortened, tightened plantar arch. To balance this, we need to open and splay. So that's the purpose behind those things. The next thing then becomes, well, let's say on the sheet for today, we have hang cleans, we have box jumps, and we have dynamic lunging. Okay, well, for this athlete, hang clean should probably be fine. So continue mission on that. The jumps are probably going to irritate them. So instead of them doing a jump series or a plyo series, they keep their feet stationary on the ground and do a med ball drill. So we still get the same ballistic component, we still get the same power expression, similar enough, but we don't aggravate that injury. And then instead of having them do a dynamic lunge where that push off on the back leg is definitely going to trigger the plantar arch, we just have them do either a stationary lunge, or probably an even better option would be just a rear foot elevated lunge, so that we're not overloading that back foot and aggravating the plantar fascia. So what this all brings me to here is Yes, the best ability is availability. Yes, performance and rehab are two sides of the same coin. Yes, we want to continue to reinforce the coming together of these two sides as opposed to this delineation and separation of rehab is over here and performance is over here. But what we need to really lean into is understanding that the majority of the value that we're going to be able to provide here is simply by modifying and manipulating the training parameters. We don't necessarily need to do special or different things in most cases. Like, of course, there are certain ones that this does apply, but for the majority of these things, we basically need to do the same things. We just need to play with the volume, the intensity, the frequency, the velocity of movement, the position in which we are moving from, and then the range or the path of motion that we are moving through. And if we can dial in on those things, these situations become much more manageable, and they're very, very much a tangible means to progressing athletes back to full health.